This week on Arizona Illustrated, a story of loss, hope, and finding a new home. Conserving DeGrazia, music carved from the desert, and our favorite place, Congress Street. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Recently, NPR reported that the Syrian civil war could be on the verge of its worst bloodshed yet, the wholesale destruction of the eastern side of Aleppo. Aleppo was once Syria's largest city and that country's commercial and industrial center. Well, during 5 years of fighting, millions have fled Syria seeking refuge. Each have stories of what and who they left behind.
Syria. Unrest begins in early spring 2011 with protests and crackdowns. The conflict evolves into an all-out civil war. Multiple factions and countries engage the fight. More than 200,000 people are killed over the course of the war. Nearly 5 million flee their homes and seek refuge. Neighboring nations grapple with the mass exodus, and countries around the globe consider their role in the refugee crisis. The war rages on. Fadi Iskandar and Tamara Hachatrian met before the war at the Arabic Music Institute in Aleppo, Syria. They were music teachers at the school. Both grew up in families where music was important, and they learned to play a variety of instruments, including the violin.
My father bought for me a small keyboard when I was 4 years old.
Fadi was already teaching at the institute when 20-year-old Tamara joined the faculty. He was 27.
She worked there. We worked together. She was the next door teacher.
So we start to talk about music and stuff, and after we find some interesting duets and start to practice together. And I start like, this person very interesting for me and very comfortable. And after it turns more and more maybe love, yeah.
That love soon turned to engagement. They married in Holy Cross Catholic Church in Aleppo. Fadi's mother Nadia and his father George, a deacon in the church, came to the wedding. Tamara's parents were unable to secure passports from Vienna, Austria, where they lived at the time.
For a young girl, it's like very excited. Have a very happy day. And we went after that to honeymoon to Beirut. It was very fun and very, very interesting, very interesting.
They continued to teach music and violin and played concerts together, traveling and performing. Years later, their first child was born, a daughter they named Angelina. She was baptized and life was good. That is until the Syrian civil war crept ever closer.
Very, very, very dangerous. And you know, for the civil war, you don't know from where the danger comes. If with other war, just the soldier fight, but the civil war, you don't know.
For Fadi Iskandar and his family, everything has changed. For civilians caught in the crossfire, life as they knew it is over.
All the people there, they miss the country. Especially for me, I am a musician, you know. I need happy people to play for them. The violin has been for me like a magic. Without this, there is no any flavor for the life. Without music or without smile, sharing food with other people. Social, like, you know, we love this.
Music and playing the violin is what brought them together before the fighting began.
Bombs, shooting, dangerous situations. It's makes you can't live anymore with that. Maybe if me alone, maybe I can wait a little more, but I fret too much about Angelina.
Their daughter Angelina was 4 at the time, and the sounds of war were hard to hide.
And sometimes you can't explain what's going on. When she's trying to say, what is that? Shooting or something, because I don't like to make her stress. So I it's a birthday party, it's something like that, and she's like, weird. I don't know this is birthday party looks like that.
The battle for Aleppo began in July of 2012. The threat to life and liberty was now too close to home.
But I fret too much about Angelina, because her school was Christian. They put a car with bombs and wrote, every mother will cry today.
Rescuers were able to find safe passage for the children.
God bless them because they got another the different way outside of the school and they safe. And I decide, the child like this age, I don't feel she's safe there.
You can't live 1 second with your family there anymore. For this, I want to leave the country. It's dangerous, too dangerous.
Fadi, Tamara, and Angelina fled Syria in late 2012. They found their way to Tucson and are in the United States on visas. They've been seeking asylum for the past 3 years.
It's hard because, I have their house, work, friends, family, relatives, students.
2 years ago, they welcomed a second daughter into the world, Susanna.
The little one, Susanna, she's my angel. I want to play with her all the time.
Fadi and Tamara still play their violins together, like they did when they first met. They've learned a new language and culture, and they say Tucson has welcomed them.
I'm so lucky because I got here good church, good people, good friends, my job and good kids, and my family. It's everybody. It's safe. Now I feel my second place. It's here. It's like kind of my second homeland. Yes.
But they will always remember their life in Syria and those they had to leave behind.
And there is one also good, very good woman in Aleppo, my mom. I still remember her all the time. She's great. Yeah, stop. I think she's happy because I am here. I think it is very good for her. She's more happy than I stay there.
Now safe in their new community, they look to the future and what it may hold.
I think everything in God's hands because I believe too much to God. Maybe one day every people understand because we are all as human. Maybe they can just stop. Just stop.
I hope for safe and good future for my kids, and I hope the peace for all the world.
By the mid-1970s, artist Ettore Ted DeGrazia was famous and wealthy. But before all of the money and notoriety, he was happy to paint anywhere, including on the wall of a house right here in Tucson.
Ted DeGrazia was born in the small mining town of Morenci 3 years before Arizona became a state. The son of Italian immigrants would rise from these humble beginnings to become the most reproduced artist in the world.
He works in the mine for a little while and decides that's not what he wants. There's other things in life. He had a real vision of himself from an early age.
The physical manifestation of that vision can be seen and experienced at DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun. This National Historic District in the Catalina foothills is as close to a complete artist's statement as you will find anywhere. It looks as though it were dreamed into existence and is unmistakably DeGrazia. The gallery, like any building, needs maintenance, and so do the 15,000 or so original pieces of artwork inside it.
I've been working with the DeGrazia Foundation since 2005.
Charlie has been working to clean and restore all of our collection for a long time.
So I'm eventually going through the whole collection, which I said is like a lifetime of work.
Even the most beautiful and the most famous artworks need conservation from time to time.
Charlie Burton is a fine art conservator, an often overlooked and critically important job. Like DeGrazia, she gravitated towards art at a young age.
And I moved to England to go to art school, then eventually started working for some Dutch galleries in London. And some people said, "Did you ever think about being a conservator?" And I said, "What is a conservator?" I fell in love with it. I specialized in 16th and 17th century Dutch paintings. I never thought I'd be back in America living. I thought I'd just stay in England.
Life brought Burton to Tucson. She started working on more contemporary artists like DeGrazia. That brings her to this backyard in Midtown Tucson to see a mysterious mural.
I actually never knew it existed until the family itself called me up last February and said that they had a DeGrazia mural.
I was 6, so my comprehension of what that actually meant was very low. It's like, ooh, pretty picture. Here, let me go play in the backyard now.
The mural was indeed a DeGrazia. It was there when John McNeese's parents bought this house in 1974. Slowly, over time, it started to succumb to the elements.
My father passed away a few months ago, and we're very fortunate in having enough resources to restore it, and we kind of felt it was a moral obligation for us to do so.
So they called Burton, and she began the daunting restoration process. The first step was to find out as much as possible about the mural's origin.
I came back and talked with our director here about it, and they said, yes, we've looked at it 7 or 8 years ago, and we have records about that mural, but we don't know the story behind it.
He did not sign it when he originally painted it. The owners at that time asked him to come back. Supposedly, he was quite drunk, misspelled the word original. We're lucky enough that he had some photographers shooting him painting it, at least certain aspects of it, and it made it into an article from Arizona Highways 1949 talking about him. We have original color photographs of him, which Charlie is using to match the colors up more exactly.
The mural appears to have been painted in 1948 or 49. Robert and Mildred Fish owned the home at that time.
The family that owned that house were benefactors of the artists of the day.
DeGrazia had been looking for a place to do a large mural.
And the family said, use these walls. So he was happy to go there and create a story. Arizona Highways came and photographed him. It turned out to be a very big article for him, and I guess at that time he really was quite poor.
It's hard to imagine DeGrazia as a struggling artist, but at that time he was. His style, reflected on these walls, was still colorful, but much more somber. than the work he later became known for.
He had gone to Mexico to study with Diego Rivera and Jose Orozco. When he came back to the United States, it didn't translate into anything at all.
But he still had his own style, was definitely there. When you look at his women, his faces, he had quite the style already.
It's incredibly beautiful, and the more we learned about it, you know, it's the largest surviving DeGrazia mural in the world.
I've restored some of his other murals on walls in private homes, but they've mostly been little sketches, a little locatia or something like that, not as finely detailed as this mural is.
Burton's job is demanding physically and mentally. Almost 70 years after it was painted, this mural needs a lot of work.
What I'm trying to do is bring the mural back, not try to restore it per se, but try to conserve it, save as much of the original paint as I can.
She works on areas smaller than an inch, but can never lose sight of the full picture.
I really try to concentrate on what I'm doing. You just kind of go into your own little world, and you just don't even realize that time's passing so fast. What colors was he using in his palette? Because I've been trying to look at his palettes, and we have tons of his palettes. I was looking at the ones that were in the magazine to see what, you know, colors, unique colors that he might have put in there. I want it all, in the end, to blend and look very similar to what it looked like at the time.
Burton worked on the mural 3 days a week for 6 months and logged nearly 240 hours restoring it from this to this. The detail and precision are astounding. It looks as though DeGrazia just finished it.
The level of detail and care required in getting this restored is amazing, amazingly deep and intricate.
Less than 10 years after this mural was originally painted, UNICEF put Los Niños on a greeting card. That card sold millions worldwide and skyrocketed him to international fame. DeGrazia cashed in, making accessible work that was consumed by the masses. Despite his wide reproduction, original DeGrazia murals are exceedingly rare.
There was a mural up in Phoenix about 6 months ago that was destroyed. A building was bought and torn down with a very large mural inside. So they're disappearing.
This labor-intensive restoration gives us a glimpse into DeGrazia's mind when he was just another struggling artist, trying to find his way in the world.
It's a beautiful mural. It's giant, and it tells an interesting story.
It's not going to be one of these things I can just walk away from and say it's done now and it's going to be fine. We're going to have to come back and keep checking on it and making sure the preservation stays there for the future. There's so much significance to having this wonderful mural left for us.
For a chance to see the mural in person on Saturday, October 29th, visit the Arizona Illustrated page at azpm.org or check out the AZPM Facebook page. To some, the Sonora Desert looks barren, a harsh environment offering little of use. Look again. There are mesquite pods for making flour, agave for tequila, prickly pear fruit for jams and syrup, just to name a few. Well, one Tucsonan envisioned a new use for an old plant, the century plant, and it may be music to your ears.
My name is Bruce Stoller. I'm a pianist, composer, and flute maker. I was born on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I learned playing piano from my mom, who was a very fine jazz pianist. And I think I learned everything about piano playing before I had a proper teacher. I was in Manhattan School of Music, and it was the 60s. I had a shifting of consciousness and a shifting of what my goals were. And so eventually I went across the GW Bridge on a bicycle out west and landed in Tucson 57 days later, camping, experiencing the West, and a change internally. In the late 70s, I discovered the flutes on a walk with my then wife. She knew that I loved playing bamboo instruments, and there were no examples of them. And she elbowed me on our afternoon walk and said, why not those? I bet native cultures and Hispanic cultures have done this. In my research at the Science Library and at the main library at the University of Arizona, I found that no records of cylinder making with yucca and agave were left behind by natives or Hispanic cultures. I do know that they used them for other purposes. They used them for armadas, for corrals, for walking sticks. As a musician, as a pianist, as someone who's always loved flutes, and get to make these instruments is a very powerful creative message that affects all parts of my musicianship. I never thought that working with my hands in the dirt, gathering the flutes, making the cylinders, composing music for them, the whole thing, was going to affect me psychologically, spiritually, and artistically. I'm a Jewish guy that came out west. I was looking for something. And making a cylinder from the yuccas and agaves was a high thrill of a lifetime. I fell in love with them because it was a way of finding something original.
Everyone has their own special place, somewhere where you can be yourself, be present, and perhaps, if you're lucky, sense the future. For architect Paige Rep, an intersection in downtown Tucson offers both.
What is it about a place that makes it your favorite? Maybe it's the way a space makes you feel, or the memories made that remain vivid no matter how much time has passed. For me, this sense of place is embodied by two buildings and the spot right between them, the middle of Congress Street, between Hotel Congress and the Rialto Theater. Since moving here in 1992, my life has revolved around these buildings and that mid-street spot in particular. The vibrant Hotel Congress, which first opened in 1919, was the playground of my young adult life. I credit it with nurturing downtown from its infancy to the energetic entertainment district we all know and love today. Across Congress Street lies the Rialto Theater. Not much to look at back in '92, but after major renovation, she sure does sparkle. During Club Crawl, one spring evening back in 2000, Congress Street was packed. It looked lived in, sort of like it does now any given Thursday. While crossing the street, I spied her, the girl I would eventually marry. 7 years later, we said our vows on the stage of the Rialto. I've been to both Hotel Congress and the Rialto for countless events and shows, and each time I am reminded how this part of Tucson has shaped my life and given me so much. If you are ever in need of some entertainment, head downtown. See what it's like in the middle of Congress, the heart of Tucson's resurgence. I can't promise you that you will find true love, but who knows? There is so much happening there now, anything is possible. Just be careful and quick about it. The new streetcar is running. It's quiet, and I would hate to think you got run over on Congress Street because of me.
Share your favorite place on the Arizona Illustrated page at azpm.org. We leave you with an excerpt from the documentary DeGrazia, produced by Arizona Public Media back in 1976 when it was known by its call letters KUAT.
Although he employs a wide variety of mediums, DeGrazia continually returns to working in oil. He works directly with a palette knife for the most part, rather than with a brush.
Mostly in my paintings I do use a palette knife. And the way this came about, when I first went to the university, and I couldn't afford a brush, so I thought the best thing for me to do is start using a palette knife. And when I began to use a palette knife, I was cutting through the boards. I couldn't even afford a canvas at that time. So I used to beat up these boards very bad. A lot of people think a palette knife is something new. It actually isn't. I imagine they use a palette knife, razor blade, any kind of a spatula they could get. But the knife I use is a straight edge knife, and it's hard to get close to the canvas without hitting your knuckles on the canvas. So I had to go a long ways before I learned how to, not to cut the canvas, how to hold the knife almost to a balance. And to me, it is pretty much like a fine piano player, because I do put pressure on the knife at different places for different effects I want. And often, when I forget myself, the knife will flip off, just like a ballet dancer will come into the stage and flips up, and then the knife, I have to pick it up, it gets dented, and I have to resharpen it again. And another thing with a knife, I can complete the idea and not finish it. As a matter of fact, all my paintings are completed, but never finished. By completing, the onlooker can participate. By finishing it, you go as far as the intellect, reasoning, you show how much you know, and that's it. The onlooker sees it, and then he's through. With me and my paintings, I want people to go back and back and back again to them.
To watch the entire 1976 film DeGrazia and an additional film featuring the artist, visit azpm.org/DeGrazia. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, a Tucson veteran remembers one of the coldest and most brutal battles in U.S. history. A profile of the Tucson Symphony's new conductor, the art life of Karima Walker, and our favorite place, El Tiradito. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.